Supreme Court says hard pass to anti-abortion stalkers, and we'll fill you in on why Justices Sam Alito and Ginny's husband are so pissed about it.
Plus, co-founder and executive director of the Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund, Laurie Bertram Roberts is here, talking the intersection of reproductive rights and disability rights and why they're all part of reproductive justice.
Plus, comedian, actor, writer, and our very own Abortion Access Front board member, Joyelle Nicole Johnson, comes in hot, talking about abortion, Black History Month, and her emotional meeting with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
All of it coming up on this episode of the Feminist Buzzkills podcast, the show that knows Elon doesn't care about the 5 things we did last week, but we emailed him anyway. I'm Liz Winstead, and that laugher in the background is my co-host, Moji Alamodeal.
Hello, I am Moji Alamodeal, and I'm so happy to tell Elon all of the things I did on my Canadian vacation last week.
Oh my God, what are the 5 things you did?
You know, I saw the Niagara Falls 5 different ways.
Oh, 5 ways.
5 ways, yeah. By the falls, behind the falls, underneath the falls, from the water power station. There's a lot of falls to see. One fall, so many ways to see it.
Did you go to the Canadian side too?
Yeah, I was only on the Canadian side. Why would I stay on the New York side when there's a Canadian side?
And the Canadian side is just better.
It's beautiful. The Horseshoe Falls are gorgeous. Also, going in the winter, wild choice. Love it for myself. Wild choice. Ice and snow everywhere.
Did you go on the Maid of the Mist in the winter?
No, because the Niagara River is frozen, fully iced over. And so where would you put a boat? You would need an ice crusher, you know, those like Arctic ice crushers. But they have all these fun rides, like literally behind the falls, like walking through the power station that the Niagara Falls like powers that are part of sort of the Niagara Parks exhibit. And so you can go like down close to where the bottom of the falls are and the mists kind of come on you. And if it was summer, we would have been blasted by the mist, but it was February in Canada. So it was just ice as tall as White Walkers.
Wow, that's cool. Did you feel like you were behind the wall?
I was definitely behind the wall.
What a fun way to spend your birthday. All of our listeners were happy birthdaying you, and we missed you, but I'm super glad you're back.
I'm happy to be back. And yeah, it seems like nothing interesting is happening in the US now. So it's not like I missed anything, you know?
No, I mean, why do we even do this segment? Should I be scared? You shouldn't be scared. We're just done.
Well, besides wishing me birthdays, what are the 5 things you told Elon you did this last week, Liz?
Oh, I told him that I installed Trump toilet. You can put it at the bottom of your toilet to have your toilet be clean.
Ooh, so you can, nice. Oh, that's really festive.
I put that in. I went and got some of my vaginal rejuvenation prescription cleaning, prescription drugs.
Important. I'm sure he was fascinated.
I really feel like I should just write Elon with all the things that happened to your old vagina, like the 5 things that happened to him, just to gross him out thoroughly. I don't think he could handle it. If I was just like, you know, just working it all out.
Aren't like all his kids IVF? I don't think he's into vag anyway, like in that way. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Or maybe vag isn't into him. Let's be honest.
Well, let's be honest.
And maybe that's why Trump was like, you know, an IVF in every pot.
Yes.
Because Elon's like, IVF's the way to go. You know, nobody wants to fuck us anymore, even though we're rich, but we do want kids. Right. To make it seem like we're awesome.
We're doing it for everyone when we're just doing it for ourselves.
So gross. Anyway, so I don't even know if that was 5 things, but I feel like it was 3 super gross things. So I'm good.
Yeah. Well, also, Moji had a birthday shout out. And if you joined our Patreon, you too could have joined me in my birthday celebrations if you were born around now. Just a thought for the coming year. Well, let's move on to Should I Be Scared, shall we?
Let's get to it because people are terrified.
And they should be. So we are asking folks to call or text us their questions and concerns about all of the attacks on reproductive health care. And so we want to help you put your concerns in perspective. So Liz, let's get to our first question.
Okay, so our first question is a text. And it says, "Hi, Liz and Moji, ask your buzzkills. I recall a couple of years ago, there was a lawsuit in Indiana where a Jewish group made the assertion that anti-abortion laws were against the religion of Jews. The Jewish plaintiffs won. Yay! And what happened after that? Does that mean you have to be Jewish in order to get an abortion there? Must you prove you're really Jewish? I mean, in this day and age, I feel like they're making you prove a lot of stuff. Could I prove that I'm Jewish because I celebrated the high holidays each year and have a few select words I speak in Yiddish, or did absolutely nothing change?
Oh, I love this question. So, yes, as they stated in the question, the Jewish plaintiffs were successful in getting an injunction against the state's abortion ban. And the injunction applies to anyone with a religious objection to the abortion ban. And this is just an injunction. So, the case actually, they haven't won it, but the case still has to wait to go to court. And so, in New York, this would be good. But in Indiana, I don't think there's a doctor or a hospital willing to provide abortion to someone with this religious objection yet. And since there's no provider willing to risk it, it's not really a right that you can exercise, even though it's a right that does exist on the Indiana books this second.
And it's going to go to trial, and then it will kick off a series of things. So during the injunction right now, you could technically, if somebody were to give you an abortion and your religion had a religious exemption, you don't have to be Jewish, which is one of the questions that you asked.
Yes.
It is Jewish people filed it on behalf of their own religion, but it's about how religion plays into it. So I feel like we're in a waiting period and a holding pattern.
We're in a waiting period, yeah. But if you are a Satanist or you follow the flying spaghetti monster, in theory, abortion is a right that exists for you in Indiana, but in practice, probably not.
So, Moji,
yeah,
how would you rank this concern on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being get your freak on, don't give it another thought, and 5 being Elon Musk has moved the whole Doge crew into your uterus.
So I would give this a 2.5 because it's in limbo. I think you want to wait and see and you want to pay attention to it. There's nothing you can do to access this right now that I'm aware of in Indiana, but it might go down to a 1 in the near future. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'm going to say on that scale, I'm going to give it a 2.5 seems right because it's in flux. I feel encouraged that Indiana courts were like, look, this is a religious freedom issue and let's see where we go. This could go right as low as a 1 or just go to a 5 if it goes all the way to Supreme Court. And they're like, too bad, we only have one religion in this nation.
Exactly. RFRA for 1 and no RFRA for anyone else.
Yep. All right, let's go to the second message, Moj.
Okay. This one is also a text message, and so I'll read it. Hey, Lizz and Moji, this is Gabby from Miami, Florida. I'm more than 6 weeks pregnant, but we have a 6-week ban here. And if I had a miscarriage after the 6 weeks point that I've passed and I need to go to the hospital, should I be scared that I'll be arrested? Will I even get care at this point in Florida? Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Gabby. Florida's tricky because they are very, very, very much sort of on the hunt. There's a couple of questions I would ask or I would have you consider. I don't know how far along you are. That can make a difference in how they look at you suspiciously. If you're miscarrying way later in pregnancy, they might be suspicious. And also, are you a person of color? Are you a Black person? What is your income status? The way that the medical system is profiling people is pretty scary. So yes, you can get care for sure. The answer is yes, you can get care, miscarriage care for sure at a hospital. But I think, Moji, maybe we should give Gabby some ways that Gabby can feel safe going into a hospital if Gabby starts to miscarry.
I actually, I'm really hesitant to encourage anyone to stay out of the medical system, but I would wonder if you have prenatal care, if you have any privilege of prenatal care and you have a doctor that is not just a random emergency room in a place you may not know, that you can call if you suspect you're miscarrying, that you could reach out to instead of entering a hospital system, especially if you're a person of color, especially if you have used any substances, if you have Googled at any point about abortion, even though that's not something you're pursuing, I would try to maybe stay out of a hospital if you can. If your need is acute and you go in there, insist at all points, I'm having a miscarriage. I want to keep this baby. I don't know, whatever you have to do to try to act your way into making them believe that you are miscarrying and you are not trying to induce an abortion could be helpful. But truthfully, if somebody wants to profile you and wants to make your life difficult, it's tough in Florida. It's real tough.
I would also bring someone with you if you can, if you've got a person, a partner or a parent or people who can vouch for your pregnancy journey so that they cannot make assumptions about you and that there are other people to ask so that they wouldn't just call law enforcement in and then you are kind of vulnerable there by yourself.
Right.
So if you can do that, do. But I would say also to check around to see, even though there is a 6-week ban, there are Florida clinics that used to provide abortion that can provide up to 6 weeks of abortion. So, and see if they would help you with your miscarriage management, or have them, if you called them and explained what was happening, they may be able to guide you to a proper place to go that you would feel safe and that people wouldn't call law enforcement on you.
Also, there is the miscarriage and abortion hotline that you can reach out to. And I think it would be a great first step if you suspect you're miscarrying during your pregnancy, or if you are having an abortion and you have some questions about what's happening. It could be a great first step before walking into an unknown emergency room to find out what you can do to manage your care. Liz, so in Florida, on a ranking of 1 to 5, 1 being don't worry about it, 2 being Elon's talking to your cooch, where are we putting this?
Well, Gabby, I would say it's a 4 because of the variables of how they're trying to criminalize pregnant people as a whole and writ large, and how they suspect our intentions always. And so I would say the good news is there's a bunch of resources you can take to protect yourself if you are miscarrying. This hotline is one, providers that are there. Really listen and put that hotline on speed dial. Keep that
Yes.
going, just so you can have a safe place to go. What do you say, Moj?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that 4 is about right to put this, and it could, again, slide up to 5 and slide down to 1, depending on your specific circumstances. But 4 is, I think, the level of trepidation that you should maybe approach this with if you really don't know the situation you're walking into.
I agree. So we hope that we helped Gabby and person who didn't leave their name in Indiana, but we want to open this up to all of you. So if you want your concerns about the state of abortion access and repro health addressed, please call or text our hotline 201 574 7402. Just leave your first name, your city, and fire away. We will get to as many questions as we can and try to help you navigate if you should be terrified or if you should feel like too much bad information is out there in the world.
Again, that number is 201 574 7402 to text or call. The number will be in our show notes.
Thanks, Moj. Let's get to the news, shall we?
Yeah, Liz, let's do it. You probably have heard the story by now, but if you haven't, buckle up. 3 unidentified men dragged a woman out of an Idaho town hall because she dared demand answers from the politician speaking. As she was physically removed from the hall, the assailants refused to identify themselves and were later found to be employees of Lear Asset Management, a private security firm that was hired by the politicians who were speaking. She has since raised over $300,000 for her legal case against them, and the Coeur d'Alene police have revoked Lear's security local business license. No word if the Empire will also revoke their stormtrooper contract.
Montana is forging a new frontier of fuckery by introducing a law that if you leave the state to have an abortion, you could be charged with human trafficking your fetus. So while Doge is out there cutting aid to stop actual humans from being trafficked, Montana wants to put money in to charging you with trafficking yourself. Watch out, Montana. With this logic, using a vibrator while pregnant could be considered 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon.
And finally, this is rich. New Jersey is moving forward with prosecutions for violating local law that prohibits harassment and disruption at an abortion clinic, including a Catholic friar who defines himself religious hermit. To boldface claim you're a hermit while spending every weekend with a mob of misogynists screaming at abortion patients is some next level gaslighting, even for Catholics. Guess the church paid that $87 million settlement for just meditating with underage boys.
And this was your steaming news dump. Moji, wow.
Wow, I say, wow.
Wow, it's right. Oh my God. That Jersey story is so gross. Literally hermit. A hermit.
That's not how hermits work. That's not how hermits work.
Like anywhere. Not in the crab community.
I was totally thinking of the crab.
Not in the monk friar community. God, if only.
Hermit means I don't know what your face looks like.
Right. It's wild.
So before we get to the stories we want to dig deeper into, we have some business to take care of, Liz.
We do. We are going to be plugging this till it is over because it's really cool. Yes, Michael Shannon and musician Jason Narducci are touring the country doing REM's Fables of the Reconstruction. And we love this tour for a lot of reasons. One, it's super fun, brings pure joy, dancing and singing to one of the best rock albums ever. And two, the proceeds from the poster they designed for the tour go directly to Abortion Access Front to support our work.
Bonus, AF and local clinic will have a table at most of the shows. So if you go, come say hi, get a poster, some stickers, make a donation, and sign up to support your local abortion providers. We'll be at the New York shows together, and Liz at Minneapolis and the rest of the tour.
The funds raised will support Abortion AF's Adopt a Clinic program, and we are so blown away by the responses we've gotten so far.
You can check out all the tour dates and get tickets at concertedefforts.com, and that link will be in the show notes. Also, Liz, we're heading to the Supreme Court. Thank you, South Carolina. It seems like it's not enough to institute a total abortion ban and impose the death penalty if you have an abortion in the state. Nope. They actually have to fight Planned Parenthood because they believe Medicaid funding should not be given to Planned Parenthood for pap smears, birth control, and wellness visits because Planned Parenthood provides abortion in other states. Oh my God.
So join us in DC to protest, get some good trouble on, and see us do a live podcast. It's going to be super fun. We are joining forces with the podcast Boom Lawyered. You've heard them on our show before. We've been on their show. It's called Boom Buzzkills, live at the Black Cat on April 3rd. We're announcing that soon. The link will be up soon, and we will keep you posted on all of that stuff. We're super psyched.
I'm so excited. I think we're going to have so much fun. It's going to be an incredible show.
That's right. And if you do want to come and join us and have some fun, we have a form that we're going to put in our show notes where you can fill in, tell us your level of spice of how you want to participate. And at the very least, you should come down and come to the pod. So we hope we see you.
Yes, I think it'll be great. I'm very excited.
That's right. Now, let's break it down. Let's get on to the stories we want to talk about further.
So, in a month of one hit after the other, we were finally granted some good news. Maybe. By the Supreme Court, which is crazy, when they decided to not take a case that could have eliminated buffer zones at abortion clinics. Now, with the FACE Act in the crosshairs, this is one of the only lines of defense available to clinics to enforce peace around clinic entrances. And of course, Justice Thomas is smoking mad that SCOTUS hasn't taken yet another chance to attack abortion rights. So, Liz, can we just talk about what buffer zones are right now? Because people may not be aware of that phrase.
Yeah, so basically a buffer zone says you cannot be within 8 feet of a person, a patient, a doctor, somebody who is going into a clinic within a 100-foot radius of the clinic. The buffer zones were created because back in the late 80s and early 90s, there was so many anti-abortion extremists who would chain themselves to the door of clinics. They would burst through the door of the clinics, chain themselves to the chairs in the waiting rooms. They would sometimes burst through the waiting room and then occupy the exam rooms and the procedure rooms. They were firebombing clinics. They were murdering doctors. It was really, really, really bad. And so they decided that we need buffer zones. And so in 2000, there was a challenge to the buffer zones in Colorado. And the Supreme Court said, yep, that sounds right. 100-foot radius. That seems like a good protection. It doesn't violate anybody's First Amendment right. Cut to now.
Well, just before we cut to now, I also just want to indicate, but a lot of times if you go to clinics that don't have buffer zones, literally these clinic protesters are not peacefully, they love to say that they're just praying, but they can be all up in your face, yelling at you, throwing literature in your face, saying, I want to take your baby. It can be really, really, really stressful for a patient and for employees.
We've seen where they've set up PA systems and then they blast babies crying or little children singing. They'll have those massive posters that have bloody fetuses on them. They are in your face.
Yes.
So now with Roe falling, I think that the anti-abortion movement was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to get back to the matter of trying to overturn the buffer zone laws entirely so that people can just be willy-nilly in the face of patients. And so there's two cases, one out of Illinois and one out of New Jersey. And this Supreme Court ruled 7-2, saying, we're not going to take up this case. We're just not going to.
So you said 7-2. So 7 people said, no, we don't want to do this. But Clarence Thomas and Alito were like, wait a minute, you are denying us an opportunity to keep people from safely getting to their abortions? How dare?
It should be noted that Clarence Thomas voted against buffer zones in 2000. This is what pisses me off. He cited in his, like, I would have taken this case on this. He was like, the Dobbs decision has greatly shaken the Colorado case we ruled on, and it's bullshit, and we never should have done it. And it's like, it doesn't. The Dobbs case shouldn't matter. What should matter is it okay to harass people outside of a medical facility if that medical facility is providing legal care in the state that they're providing the care in?
Exactly right. And we knew, like, red states before Dobbs did have no buffer zones. A lot of them had no buffer zones. And you'd see, again, in front of them, craziness. And a lot of bluer states, you wouldn't see so much madness. But now, since there's no abortion in Republican states, they're just coming over the state lines and bringing their crazy to New Jersey.
That's right. And now the good news is there will be these buffer zones. Hopefully that will also help states that don't have buffer zones establish one, because it feels like this could be settled law. But the bad news is the reason these buffer zones were created was also the reason that they created a federal law called the FACE Act, which is Freedom to Access Clinic Entrances. And so a bunch of people were thrown in jail for violating this on federal charges with years and years long sentences. Trump pardoned 23 of them this year. And the FACE Act is now threatened.
That's right. He said he pardoned, like you said, he pardoned the people he pardoned. He's directed the new attorney general for the country to not pursue any new face charges. And he's set the bar for when they would pursue any kind of face charges so freaking high. It's like not even bodily harm, death, property destruction. I feel like there's one other thing there, but it's really high. And so the people who got pardoned have basically said, we're going to go back to doing exactly what we were doing before. And there's no federal mechanism to stop them.
And not only is this administration not going to pursue these face violations, Chip Roy, who is a congressperson from Texas, and Mike Lee, a senator from Utah, have said they have legislation to repeal the FACE Act entirely. And it should be noted that the only way that they could get the FACE Act passed back in the 90s is if they included churches or religious institutions in that blanket of protection. And so my guess is that they'll repeal the current FACE Act and then replace it with a FACE Act that only protects religious institutions. And what they mean by that is not just churches, but they also mean fake clinics. So
Right.
It feels like it's bittersweet. When I hear it, I want to be happy. But like, what's your like?
I mean, my darkest take is actually the reason that the Supreme Court decided not to take it is because they know this repeal is coming. And they were like, why get into the weeds and get ourselves into some problems when we can get just it really done later? And also, I do feel like because the FACE Act will not be enforced federally and states don't have a great track record of individually enforcing violence against clinics or patients going into clinics, I still feel like it's a toothless win.
And to that point, since abortion only is now existing in blue states, basically, that means that the legislatures and the governors in those states, and especially the attorneys general, legislators are going to have to pass laws that are on a state level going to prosecute people who are violating laws outside of clinics. And the attorneys general in those states are going to have to enforce it so that people will be held accountable and punished for harming people outside of clinics.
Liz, I love that idea. And I also think in this time when we have this federal government that is working really hard to dismantle protections for anybody who needs any kind of protections, I feel like we really need to be looking at our state legislators and attorney generals for all the things we love to be coming together and really coming up with strong state laws and state enforcement measurements to help us.
Let's hope they do it and that their plate doesn't get so full with having to do everything and then they don't have a budget for it. That's the part. That's a bummer.
Yes.
Let's move on to our guest. I'm really excited about our first guest today because we're going to do something that we should do more on the show, which is sort of connect the dots between reproductive justice and abortion rights and other issues. And today we're going to connect when it comes to disability justice and reproductive justice.
I am so excited about this. I feel like I learned so much hearing about this. The disability rights community in the 70s was really out there kicking ass and getting shit done. And also, what they were demonstrating was intersectionality. People from all different kinds of movements and people with all different kinds of disabilities were coming together and fighting the fight together and working together and lifting each other up and fighting the federal government to make sure that disabled Americans got the kind of protections that they needed.
The lessons around how to be an activist, like if you're going to say, I'm scared, nope, these people really did it. And also, bodily autonomy is bodily autonomy. And whether your rights as a disabled person, your rights to whether or not you want an abortion, whether or not you should be able to parent in safe and healthy communities, all of these things we should be advocating together because we're only strong if we are working together. So let's get to the conversation.
Yeah, I cannot wait.
Our first guest is a disability and reproductive justice advocate in Mississippi who is helping folks learn how these issues are inextricably linked and why we need to advocate for all of them. Please welcome, from the Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund serving patients across the South, co-founder and executive director, Laurie Bertram Roberts. Hey, Laurie.
Hi, Laurie.
Hey, y'all.
We had to check in with some of our favorites, and happens to be that you are one of our favorites, and you happen to be in a state that is profoundly complicated and not doing the most when it comes to making things better. So I wanted to start out briefly for everybody that doesn't know Laurie Bertram Roberts. I would like you to talk a little bit about the Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund and your RJ work.
Yeah, so MRFF, we call it MRF lovingly, because that's what the acronym kind of looks like to us.
I like Murph. Papa Murph.
We were founded in 2013 as an abortion fund that does RJ work, right? So like we do abortion funding, but we also do broader RJ work. Originally, we made sure people had Plan B because back in 2013, I have to remind people all the time, you couldn't get Plan B over the counter. You had to go and show your ID and get it from behind the counter. And so like that's one of the first like RJ work that we were doing, aside from like making sure people have food and all of that. So anyways, fast forward, we've been around for 11 years. We have a little free pantry. We have a little free library. We have diaper closet and period supply closet. Of course, we still fund people's abortions. We do a lot of work around educating people around SMA, self-managed abortion. And I came to this work because I went through reproductive injustice. I had a miscarriage where I almost died because they wouldn't give me an abortion. I was denied an IUD for a reason I still haven't figured out. The doctor just was like, no. So I've been surveilled by the family policing system. So all of those things matter to us within the org because a lot of us have experienced it. It's one of the reasons we do work around also making sure people can stay together when they have a CPS case, right? If they need material things to help keep their kids, we're here to help provide those if we can.
You know, a lot of times we talk amongst ourselves in the movement, and for folks who are out there in the world, want to do good and not understanding why we say reproductive justice and how it's not interchangeable with abortion rights and with reproductive rights, that it's an umbrella with which you do the work through. I'd love for you to just talk a little bit for our listeners about when we talk about reproductive justice, or we'll probably say RJ a bunch on the pod, what that means.
Yeah, the thing about RJ is it's the right to parent. It's the right not to parent. It's the right to parent in safe and secure communities. It's the right to be seen as a full sexual being and receive full sexual health care and education. It's all of those things. And it's never just one silo. Like I would never show up in my community with just abortion work. To us, that feels, especially as Black women doing work with Black people, that feels a little eugenic to us to only show up and be like, we're only here to support you if you don't want a baby. But if you want a baby, we can't raise $2,000 for you for that. But if you need to go get your abortion, we got you. That's not RJ for us, and it's not RJ in general. It's one of the reasons we do such broad work, and we've gotten criticized for that because people are like, you could pay for more abortions with your pantry money. I want people to understand this. We will never fund every abortion, okay? It's literally not going to happen. Our government has to do its job and provide our citizens with healthcare, period. Like, this is a stopgap, not a solution.
I love that, because that's exactly when you were talking. I was like, well, that's the job of the state or insurance companies, like that. It should not be the job of individuals funded by private donors. So your reproductive justice advocacy is obviously a part of your greater work around disability justice, which folds in there. Can you talk a little bit about your disability justice work and how it intersects with your RJ work?
Yeah, one of the first things is that almost everyone who works with the MRFF is disabled or chronically ill. And that's kind of rare. Like, I tend to be the only wheelchair user at events. Like, when I go to conferences to speak, they're generally kind of inaccessible. I have to like make a whole bunch of requests for accommodations. People don't think about it in advance. So a lot of the work has been advocating for people, one, to make sure our spaces are accommodating, right? Making sure that people are accommodating folks when they do protests, accommodating folks when they do education. But the other thing is bringing out the point that abortion clinics are not exempt from being part of the medical system that marginalizes disabled people, and saying that to folks in person, letting them know it's not just enough to be like, we have a cutout and a sign on our sidewalk and you can get through our door with your wheelchair, because there's a lot of other disabilities. How are you accommodating people with autism? How are you accommodating people who need Braille? Accounting for doing ASL for people? How are these things happening? And that's been a lot of the work that we've done.
I love that, because I think a lot of people don't think about at all the erasure and the ableism that happens is really deep. And I think so often liberals do this thing where everything's like the right wing's fault, right? And it's not this larger, greater place that we live in. And, we've had disability rights advocates talking with us before on the podcast. And one of the things that I think is not thinking of people with disabilities as sexual beings, as people who need care, and pitting people with disabilities against working for reproductive justice. Like, what do these exceptions look like? What does it mean? Not trusting people with disabilities to parent, or sterilization. Like, there's this whole shit thing that we don't talk about.
Exactly. I think about how you're erased as a sexual being all the time, because it happens to me when I go to the doctor. Like, I went to my rheumatologist and I was like, hey man, like, this chronic pain and stuff is getting in my nerves because I can't do my freaky stuff right now. Like, I got fetish stuff I want to do and I can't do it because you're not helping me. And the way he looked at me, like, no one had ever said to him before that they want to get back to sleeping with people. It was just really strange. And also the way that people want to force you into not being a parent. So proposing that you use the LARC when you don't necessarily want a LARC, which is long-acting reversible contraception. Maybe you're being told you should get your tubes tied and you didn't want to get your tubes tied, right? While you're on the table. That happened to my friend Rebecca Coakley. Like, literally while she was on the table having her baby, they suggested that they tie her tubes because she's a little person.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that stuff happens.
Oh, I'm sure it does. It's just not it's never not shocking.
Yeah, I know, right? It's such a blatant disrespect. And I think about that a lot around Buck v. Bell still being the law of the land, right? You can still be forcibly sterilized in this country by law. And when I see laws like Comstock coming back into conversation, and, the country talking about reevaluating stuff like same-sex marriage, I know disability and disabled people are on the chopping block too, right? And we know that because they're coming for 504, but they're also coming for the 14th Amendment. I need people to be really clear about that. It is a direct attack on every case that is set upon the 14th Amendment, where that is the foundation.
Yeah.
I always say we can't win, right? If we have an abortion, then we're a murderer and we're immoral. If we have children, then we're ruining the country by having all these Black criminal babies who are like ruining the neighborhood, right? If we don't have kids, then we're not building up the community, and we're not doing enough to fulfill our roles as women. So it doesn't matter what women, femmes, people who can get pregnant do. There's going to be a critique. So I say, do what you want to do, but you might have to advocate for yourself in that situation.
Let your freak flag fly.
Yeah, like say the thing, whatever it is. Like, say the thing.
100%, because it goes back to what you opened up with the tenets of RJ, right? We want a world where we value all pregnancy outcomes and we honor them. So if you're 16 and you want a parent,
Yeah.
like we should be able to
Exactly.
provide those resources for you. And if you're 35 and have enough capacity in your parenting life and you need an abortion, have that. But like pretty simple, I would think.
You would think I want every person who wants an abortion to get their abortion. Don't ever want anyone to have an abortion that doesn't want to have an abortion.
Yes.
I want people who want a parent to be able to parent, and I want them to feel supported, and not just supported financially, but emotionally too. Like there is a lack of joy around Black birth. I feel like there is a lack of joy, especially when you are a low income person of color or Black person specifically.
Or a young person, a Black young person.
If you get pregnant, people always go, why? It's always some mess like that instead of like a joyful celebration of bringing a life into the world, which is one of the things that I try to do for our callers and our clients is make sure if they're choosing to parent that we're celebrating that decision for them. I know I wish somebody would have for me, right? All I got was, I have 7 kids for anyone who doesn't know. I have 8 counting my bonus baby and a grandbaby. And so, I reflect on the way people treated me and the way I see people be treated all the time. And it's really disgusting.
I wanted to just go back a little bit because I feel like we brought up 504, but we actually haven't talked about what it is and what it does for people. And basically that was basically said it's the federal right for people who are disabled to have the accommodations they need to participate in life. And I think that we know about all of these statutes that have happened and that have amended the way that like American life is lived. I realized as we were researching, I don't know that much about 504. I didn't know that much. It's really an inspiring story about how it was fought. And it's a really inspiring story about intersectionality and about people really coming together and fighting. People who were disabled were basically excluded from American life and paternalized. And there were a series of protests in the 70s that people would come together. And in coming together, people with different disabilities would like learn about other kind of disabilities, and people who were blind would help people who were quadriplegic, and people who were quadriplegic would help other people. And everyone was learning at ASL, and Black Panthers were bringing food in San Francisco to people. Like these are the stories about intersectionality that I think we miss. So when you hear of like 17 Republican AGs just saying, we want to roll back 504 in a vacuum, that doesn't mean anything. But when you put it in context, you're like, oh, they want to, like they did with abortion, remove the right for states to have to accommodate people and just send it back to the states.
Exactly.
Which is never a good idea for anyone and for any of the rights that we should understand as fundamental human rights.
Yeah, and the 504 case goes hand in hand with their proposed demolition of the Department of Education, right?
Right.
Because if you send it back to the states, but they're still required to do accommodations because of 504 and other laws like IDEA and the ADA, then states have to pay for all of that. They don't have any more federal money. Federal money pays for accommodations. The wildest thing to me in this whole conversation is that Texas is one of the states signed on to this case, and their governor wouldn't even be able to get into his office
without his wheelchair.
Without his wheelchair and without the accommodations that people like Judy Heumann fought for.
Yes.
Right? So how dare you come for those?
Is exactly the same as Clarence Thomas undoing affirmative action and also wanting to look at interracial marriage. That is the exact same thing.
And when he's the biggest affirmative action hire.
Yeah. In an interracial relationship, like what? You want no one to live your life.
I think what's wild about all of this is that it's kind of a return to ugly laws, right? Where if people don't understand that, there used to be laws on the books where if you were disabled, you couldn't be in public. You could only be in public in certain times. Like if literally ugly people, whenever people were germ ugly, were banished from society. And when I look at things like trying to take away Medicaid and Medicare, especially Medicaid, because it pays for so many in-home care options for people with disabilities, I think there can't be any other goal than either for us to die,
yes,
or for us to be back in institutions. Let's just be real. The GOP is like a death cult now.
That's why I love talking to you. That's why I love going and advocating with my friends who are living in the South, because honestly, I get sick and tired of assholes being like, why do we secede? Why do you move? Why don't you do 8 million other things? When it's like every time I go, I see people like you. You're like RJ, then you're like helping unionize some shit and like doing all this, it's like people in the South who are advocating are the everybody, everything, all the time people. And what I love so much about it is that you shouldn't have to move from your home, A, but B, not ceding the ground, right? And just to say, we may not win, but damn it, if you'll not hear this other voice of these other people.
I always say that Mississippi is like the Broadway of organizing. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Because like we have so few resources, but there's so much ingenuity. There's so much collaborative efforts that happen. Like, and that's every movement, to be honest. Let's be real. Every movement is like 25% of the people do the work or 10% of the people do the work. Other folks show up because they're too busy. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying that's how it works. You got the core people who do the work, and then other folks just show up. That's fine. That's how it works. But in the South, there's an added risk to that because we're an at-will employee state. People can literally get fired for doing abortion advocacy or any other kind of advocacy. They banned teachers from being able to protest like a couple years ago, right? Because teachers were protesting around education funding. They ain't like that. So they were like, no, no, no. So it's a hostile place, but also like a loving place where like, roses grow out of concrete.
In our conversation earlier this week, Liz said something that I really love. She said, oh, we should always be organizing for the person with the least level of ability, the person who has the hardest time showing up. And I also think that obviously that makes a lot of sense, but also those are people who come with the ingenuity, right? Like in New York, it's easy to not have to be reproductive justice, right? Like because we have a lot of resources. There's a lot of space. You can protest as much as you want. Maybe not when you work for Mayor Adams, but you can protest for as much as you want. Whereas if you're somewhere where you can lose your job for this, you have to be more creative in finding a way to let your voice be heard and moving the needle in the ways that matter. Also, I really think this when we talk about like abandoning the South, like the reason that the South is the way it is because of gerrymandering, not because most people there agree with these policies.
Say it louder.
It's not that it's like, oh, everybody wants the bullshit. No, they gerrymander it so they can cherry pick their voters and everyone else gets silenced. This is not any indication of the majority will.
It always is very disheartening to me when people on the left, something happens in Mississippi. Mississippi does another silly law, another ridiculous whatever. And then everybody on social media jumps up and goes, Mississippi should succeed. We should secede from Mississippi. Like Liz was saying, it's just throw everybody away. But Mississippi is one of the blackest states in the nation.
Right.
When you say you are going to throw our state away, you are being anti-black. I don't know how else to explain it to people. Like it is absurd.
It's not just Mississippi.
Exactly.
It's the South. That's where we are. Saying that as a Black person.
Why should we give up land that's been like, my family has land in Alabama that is not going anywhere. Like at least one member of the family is still hanging out on the property, right? We don't have to, and we shouldn't be asked to cede space that we have held for generations.
Right.
Let's be real. White people, even rural white people, aren't being asked why they don't leave.
To leave their land.
And people in blue states who happen to be red supporters are not being asked to leave their state or asked why they don't leave their state. And we know they ain't gonna leave their state because they got it good.
They get to have their cake and eat it too.
You get to be like, I hate food stamps. Where's my SNAP card?
Exactly.
Tell people one thing that would make your activism in Mississippi soar to the moon, or at least help a little bit.
I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. Money.
Money's right.
I've said on another podcast, white women's superpower is raising money. Like y'all raise money for anything. Ballet, cheerleading, your kids' soccer program. Like literally, like you guys have the connections within white folks to raise money in ways that marginalized people do not. And so I'm always asking, tap into that superpower and help us out because honestly, most of our donors are from out of state. And we couldn't do this work without people being mutual aid minded.
I think that's right. I one time saw a person on Facebook fundraising for their trip to Burning Man. So she could tell you what it was like to be a Burning Man. Do I need to tell you what she looks like?
Was she fully funded?
What color were her dreadlocks?
I was going to say.
White girl with dreadlocks being like, I'm doing a GoFundMe for my Burning Man trip. And I was like, I can't. Bye-bye. Laurie, we're going to put all the links to donate because your work is incredible. We support you any way we can. Always let us know.
Appreciate it.
Laurie, thank you so much.
Oh my God. Laurie, thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Laurie. You can support Laurie and her work at Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund at msreprofreedomfund.org. The link and all of the stories in this episode will be in our show notes.
And you can always find the best, most up-to-the-minute resources on accessing abortion care and funding your care on our website, aafront.org. Our Charlie chatbot is on the bottom right corner and will walk anyone, anywhere in the country through their options and resources for abortion.
Listen, we do this show because this info is not given enough attention in the media. So help us spread the word and show us some love by liking, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating. Every bit helps us reach more listeners.
That's right. And as you know, we can't do the work that we do without the support of our incredible fake sponsors. This week is brought to you by Get Her Help.
Are you a white woman who voted for MAGA because Trump was going to make your life better? Are you now full of regret and paralyzed with fear because what could never happen to you is happening to you? Then you need Get Her Help.
Get Her Help matches you with an online therapist who specializes in your specific issues. Whether you thought you were exempt from Medicaid cuts because Trump would only cut the benefits from the DEIs,
or you thought you would get some of that sweet, sweet tariff money for your childcare, and now you have no childcare.
Or maybe that measles outbreak would only affect the kids of undocumented criminals. No matter what level of privilege or racism led you to think you were exempt, Get Her Help therapists can help.
And the Get Her Help philosophy gets results because at Get Her Help, they treat the whole person. Not only will they help you unpack your selective victimhood, but will also create a healthy media diet that cuts out junk science and replaces it with fun-sized facts.
Get Her Help. When it's your fault, but will help anyway.
Liz, I think our sponsors are getting better and better. I like this product. She needs all the help she can get.
If only she would listen to our podcast.
Oh, fuck. You're absolutely right.
Oh, my God. All right, let's get to our next guest.
All right, she's a comedian, writer, and actor who you may have heard on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me or seen on shows like The Tonight Show, Survival of the Thickest, or on her own comedy special, Lovejoy, on Peacock. She's ridiculously funny, a fierce activist, and also a beloved Abortion AF board member. Please welcome the incomparable Joyelle Nicole Johnson. Joyelle, hi.
Hi Moji. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Joy.
Happy Black History Month. Have you been able to find any Black history this month?
Oh my gosh, yes. There was a baby race in New Orleans. Did anyone see this baby race?
No.
They race babies before basketball games for some reason. And obviously somebody under the influence of something came up with this. And there was a race, I think the other day, and all the babies sat there, and this one Black baby crawled to freedom. He sprinted across that thing right into his father's arms, and it was amazing. Like, everyone was going crazy.
The other baby just chilled.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I've like watched the race no less than 10 times.
Oh, my God. So that is the one piece of Black history that remains.
Yes,
Everything else
absolutely.
has been extracted from
That's it.
public view, public record. So, you know, we need you, Joyelle, to tell us what's happening so that future generations can learn about Black history. And the baby
Yes.
race of 2025 is
Yes.
going to be prominent in our history book.
I know this is going to sound weird, but you know, they used to breed us. This baby was just, oh my God, muscle tone.
Okay,
Sturdy
that's
babies.
fun.
I was so proud.
Here's
I
what
was
I
so
really like,
proud.
though, Joyelle, is that you got to meet Ketanji Brown Jackson at Carnegie Hall, but
Oh my
your
God.
Black history that you decided to lead with was just chunky babies making a run for it.
In New Orleans.
I definitely met Ketanji Brown Jackson at Carnegie Hall last year, and I burst into tears immediately.
I think I would have
Because
also.
She's so small, And when I'm like about to cry again.
You tower over her.
Oh my God. Like she was right in my boobs.
You were like a giantess.
Yes. And she walked in the room and I just saw her little tiny body walk in. I just thought of all she's had to ever go through and overcome. And I just burst into tears. And you could tell she's just used to this because she was like, oh, here's a hug. Here's a book that I signed for you. Let's take a picture. So I'm halfway in the picture, like crying and sobbing. And then there was a Black female Secret Service agent who was on her detail. And I was like, oh my God, are you a Black female Secret Service agent? And she said she's something else. I forgot what she said she was, but she was like, I'm the only one on her detail. And then so I cried about that.
So Ketanji was carrying the weight of Black excellence for you.
I was just like, what? And then one of her handlers was like, she's not going to say anything, but she's actually a really big fan of yours. And so I cried about that. And so I was just, and this is before I even got on stage. So when I got on stage, my eyes were swollen. I couldn't even take it.
Here's what I just want to picture. Ketanji Brown Jackson, like with some fuzzy socks on, right? And like a sweatshirt, laughing her ass off at you doing your like joke about getting pregnant on the floor of the Amtrak train.
Yes.
Oh my God. I just the thought of it in my brain. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I need to get a t-shirt that says
John G. Brown Jackson is a fan.
I'm so excited. I'm so happy about that. But yeah, I was almost catatonic. I was like, hello, hi. I didn't know what to say.
And still you led with the baby.
Yes, I led with the baby. Because that's present in my mind. Are you kidding me? That was last year. That was 10 years ago.
Dealing with the fall of civilization since January. How's that going for you?
I'm losing my mind.
Okay, cool. Relatable.
What does that look like for you, Joyelle?
I was in the streets in the city, and this was like the week of the election. And I saw a white dude in like a red, like a burnt sienna MAGA hat. And I did go and flip it off his head. And then I Googled afterwards that is wrong to do. That is assault. And I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that again. But then I was like, I also probably shouldn't be outside because things like that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be in my bubble in Brooklyn.
And it's their fault when things like that happen. Like, I just want to say, if you have the cojones to wear a MAGA hat in
New York,
it's your fucking fault when somebody comes, anyone, and flips it off your head. And you should be thinking you're lucky stars. That's all that happened.
Bruh, and I was just like, oh my God. I was so angry. So I'm just trying to not be so angry, you know. It's hard to travel. I'm sure you both know right now. It's hard to get on airplanes because that's where you see the most MAGA hats is in the airport. And so I'm just like, I can't be on a no-fly list. We can't be on no-fly lists. Like, I have to fly. So in the airport, I'm like, look straight ahead, Joyelle. But I'll be in the lounge too, so I can't be there like by the gate.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you is, you know, I myself as a performer, Abortion Access Front, as a crew, we're like looking at this new world order and being like, how are we going to show up now? Where is it safe to show up? What kind of shit are we going to say? Now we've landed on, we're saying everything and showing up everywhere because fuck it. Where have you landed in your assessment of like, what does it look like now? Touring, being out there, the stories you tell.
Yeah, there's certain cities I don't want to be in. I got racially discriminated against in Vermont, in Burlington, Vermont. When I went up there for New Year's, I got twice on that one trip. So I was like, oh, nowhere is safe except for like 5 cities, you know, Chicago, Atlanta, LA, sort of, you know. Oh, Minnesota, are we saying?
New York.
Are we saying? Of course, New York, absolutely. Brooklyn, more specifically.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I'm in Harlem, so also Harlem, but Brooklyn,
also Harlem, also Brooklyn, but
yeah,
seemingly just those two.
Stay away from Midtown.
I mean, I was in the East Village. So I am taking a pause from certain things. Like, I don't need to go back to Austin anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
They can have that.
That's become a Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson toxic,
Haven. Incel.
anti-feminist, like
Circle jerk.
It's a little safer because Elon is in DC. If he wasn't, he'd also be joining that circle jerk.
Right. And DC, Chocolate City. I had a Kennedy Center show that was coming up. Canceled.
You can't go to Kennedy
Did you
Center.
cancel it or did they?
They canceled it, but it was an all-female comedy festival.
Diversity.
And 2 women dropped out. And so they canceled it because of that. Not even because of the douchebag. Who knows? I feel like he was going to be like, look, I let this happen. And man, was I going to get on stage and let him have it. But also, I don't know what's going to get us arrested soon.
Yes.
So I am nervous. I am quite nervous. They've done their job. They're throwing everything at us. And I feel like a puppy during a storm, like a thunderstorm, like I'm shaking under a table.
You know what is safe? I noticed as I was, whatever, you have an OnlyFans. That's safe. And so are there feet there? Are you doing financial domination? Like, what are you doing on the OnlyFans? Come on, talk us through it.
Listen, people send requests for things and I decide how much it's worth.
That is safe work right now.
Okay, one hilarious thing that I did, dudes ask you to rate their penis.
What?
They pay you.
They pay you for that?
And they want you to roast them.
I've done that for free.
Listen.
And there's money in that?
Yes, there's money in that. And since I'm a comic, they'd be like, can I send you a picture of my dick and can you rate it? And please be honest. I'm like, oh, I'll be honest.
I'm telling you, this is a public service because
Yes.
for every single person and woman and Black person and immigrant and trans person and anybody out there in the world who would like an outlet with which to just drag dick for filth as a release.
Let's be honest, mostly white dick.
Pink dick.
I'm sure
pink
it's
dick.
mostly white dick. Yes.
Oh my God, the pink dick drag show.
We can do it live the way she would do Tinder Live.
You're right.
I mean, there's obviously the occasional, like, let me see your feet. And they'll like request, they'll be like, can you wait till your pedicure is old?
Wow.
Okay.
You're like, okay, you gotta pay extra for that. You're saying I gotta walk around with crusty toes for a week?
Right. It is the
Okay.
winter. So so that type of stuff. And it's like, okay, make a couple of extra dollars on the side, and be in my house,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. But they really, I put funny stuff on there, like jokes and things like that, because they really did want to branch out for comedians to make it more not a sex site, I guess.
Does that pay as good as the roasting?
Hell no.
Okay. I knew the answer
but
when
I
I
do like
asked.
this
I just
picture.
wanted to be clear.
Never. Never. I can't compare. I ain't got no punchlines to compare. Ew.
I love it.
Yeah, and OnlyFans, man, they really did this thing where they're supporting local artists, which is
Nice.
But yeah, I love OnlyFans for other people. Like I have another friend who I taped the comedy with, and she went way harder with the pictures and videos and made good money. And it's like, if it can pay your rent and you in the safety of your own home.
That's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Joyelle, I want to just swing it on back to like abortion and our work. And,
Yes.
I just recently saw you talking with Charles Blow. I was going to say Curtis Blow. And I was like, these are rights. You have no rights. But just talking about abortion storytelling and what it means. And I personally have found great comfort in being able to tell it and having this podcast in these days, like we always have, but in these days. So I'm wondering how, because I know you've had really meaningful experiences with people hearing you tell your story and then reaching out to you. Talk a little bit about that. And if you've seen more of that as you've told it, as we are in the end of days.
And the end times, I never would have known the feeling of telling my abortion story on stage if it were not for, the work we've done with Abortion Access Front and how liberating it was for me, but then for people to come to me afterwards. I've gotten messages online. I've gotten people find my email, finding my DMs to just tell me thank you for telling the story, because it makes them feel like they're not a bad person. It makes them feel like what they did wasn't wrong, like they're not going to hell. I was like, listen, if we going to hell for that, we're going to hell for way many other reasons.
We're already in hell.
We're already in hell.
This is the bad place.
So yeah, no, it's just been like, it warms my heart and keeps me going. It keeps me going to think about the people that I've helped with telling my story on stage, and people like coming up to me whispering, I also had an abortion. I'm like, girl, I was just yelling into a microphone. Say it with your chest.
Own it.
Own it. Like, everyone's here. Everyone's fine. You also chewed gum last week. Like, come on. Also, I'm loving how they're now saying IVF babies for everyone, but not including abortion in that story as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Because what are y'all talking about?
Are you looking forward to that?
As I have said before, and I will say again, making IVF affordable is technically lowering the price of eggs. Let's be real about that. What insurance company is going to be, or taxpayers is going to be all about forking out $100K on a maybe treatment?
Maybe.
And you know what always works? Abortion.
Oh, yes.
It works.
Abortion works. And I know these bitches, you got 6 babies.
All those babies in that vat.
All 6 babies are working, and you gonna have 6 babies? A lot of people don't know you cannot have IVF without abortion. They go together like Rama-Lama-Lama. So yeah, no, it's just an interesting time. My passport is current, and I'm going other places this year.
You have to leave. You got to pack up. Y'all are going. It's time to go. Where are you going?
Where the Black expatriates are. So
Martha's
there's a list
Vineyard?
of countries. No, Lisbon. Lisbon, apparently Medellin, Bangkok.
Cartagena, if you're going to go to Colombia, is blackety black, black, black. Chef's kiss.
Okay, I was like, which city? It's Cali, Medellin, or Cartagena? It's Cartagena.
Blackety black. It looks like Harlem.
Yes. Freaking Costa Rica, Gina Yashere, building 3 houses in Costa Rica. So my cousin got a lease in Bangkok, and she is out there with like 50 new Black female friends, and they just have a collective out there. So I'm trying to visit her by the end of the year. She has a 1-bedroom apartment in a luxury building for $650.
What? What? That's not Tribeca prices.
In a luxury building, and they are out there living their best life. I'll be calling her in the middle of the day. She's like, oh, let me get out of the pool real quick. Or let me take the call in the pool. Like, ma'am.
I love that.
Joyelle, what are you doing these days besides feet and braiding people's dicks?
Yes, go on my OnlyFans if you would like me to rate your dick. I am available for the right price, obviously. And I'm doing comedy. I'm traveling this weekend. I'm going to a college. I just did Have I Got News for You on CNN. So I'm doing my,
So
sporadic comedy work, how it comes, I'm working.
Booked and busy.
Well, Joyelle, thank you for just being awesome and doing the work and being our friend and coming on. And, it's really fun to laugh for 15 minutes as we all just wonder what shoe is going to drop at any point in our lives. So
I know. Somebody's shoes.
Somebody's
Stilettos,
dropping.
sneakers.
We might stop by your OnlyFans. I might have you rate my old vagina. How much is that going to cost me?
I love it. $29.99.
Okay. Sounds like a deal.
That's the friend rate?
That's the friend rate.
How much is it for you to tell me it looks good?
Can you imagine? If you want a positive review, that costs more money, okay? I'll roast you for damn near,
Thank you, Joyelle.
Thank you, Joyelle.
Thank you.
Follow Joyelle on Instagram at Joyelle Nicole. Check out her comedy special, Lovejoy, streaming on Peacock. And also listen to her comedy album, yell joy. We'll link to everything in our show notes.
Oh my God, that's our show. Thanks for listening, and thanks again to Laurie Bertram Roberts, and donate to the Mississippi Reproductive Freedom Fund right now.
That's right. Did we make you smarter? Make you laugh today? Show us some love by liking, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating. Plus, stay connected with us on social media at Abortion Front across all platforms. With your help, we can get more people to learn about this assault on reproductive access.
Looking for where you might fit in to do some abortion activism? We've got a 5-part activist training series, Operation Save Abortion, at operationsaveabortion.com. And while you're there, visit our super cool activist calendar, which is full of local and national actions and educational opportunities.
We've also got a great mutual aid program at Abortion Access Front called Adopt a Clinic, where the public can directly support independent clinics, abortion funds, clinic escort groups, and patients by ordering needed items from any org's wish list.
This week, we are asking you to adopt Abortion Action Missouri, an amazing grassroots advocacy org looking for everything from umbrellas for clinic escorts to batteries to snacks. If you'd like to support, check out the link in our show notes.
And the pod will be dark next week, planning some good trouble, but we'll be back the following week to celebrate Abortion Provider Appreciation Week. In honor of APAW, we'll be talking to reproductive justice warrior, OBGYN, and social media rock star, Dr. Ashley Genius. Is that not a great name?
Such a good name.
I love it. Plus, another Abortion AF fave. She's a TikTok influencer, a lawyer, a scientist, a podcaster, a comedian, and a no bullshit activist. Elizabeth Booker Houston, aka Booker Squared, will be here.
And please join our Patreon. You'll support great content and get cool FBK merch and experiences and birthday shout outs. All pledges support this pod and all of our activism at Abortion Access Front. Pledge at patreon.com/feminist buzzkills. FBK is edited by Remy DeTournay and is produced by Abortion Access Front.
So thank you so much for listening. Go like, subscribe, go Patreon it up. Moji, thanks for the pod.
Thanks for the pod, Liz. Always love doing this with you.
Feminist Buzzkills, the podcast from Abortion Access Front. New episodes drop Friday. When BS is poppin', we pop off. And if you want to support our podcast and all the work of Abortion Access Front, like, subscribe, and join our Patreon at patreon.com/feministbuzzkills.